Do you like movies? What about video games? What about movies about people who like to play video games? Well, what if I told you that there's a movie about people who like to play video games that was created by a company that wants to sell you video games? In the late 1980s, Nintendo started to dominate the video game market, and these guys advertised like crazy. They had lunchboxes, they had card games, they even had their own cereal. They were like the King Batch of video games. And just like King Batch, they decided that it was time for something bigger. So in 1989, they dipped their toes into some cinema and created the longest advertisement of all time, The Wizard. The movie opens with one of our main characters, Jimmy, walking through the desert of Utah. And I kid you not, this scene is over 2 minutes long. Jimmy is then approached by a cop who you can just tell has never talked to a child before.
You just stay put.
After the cop tells him it's time to go home, Jimmy tells him that he just wants to go to California.
Sure, kid. We all want to go to California. My wife wants to go to California.
In the next scene, we get to meet Jimmy's mom and stepdad as they're talking to a child psychiatrist. So apparently this is Jimmy's third time running away from home, and instead of hiring like a nanny or a babysitter, the stepdad suggests that they put him in a mental institution.
We're thinking about putting him into an institution. A home.
What the fuck? A mental institution? My man is 6 years old. Look after your child. In the next scene, we get to meet the rest of Jimmy's family, Corey, Nick, and his father, Sam. Over breakfast, Corey is telling them that Jimmy was just put into a mental institution, and the dad doesn't really seem to care at all.
I'm talking about putting him in a home.
That's Christine's decision.
Like, my man, that is your child. Some random guy just put him into a mental institution. You should at least act a little concerned. Corey then goes upstairs to throw darts in his room. As he's throwing the darts, one of them just happens to hit California. So he decides that he's gonna break his brother out of this mental institution and run away to California.
Do you like chocolate? Yeah. Good. Get it.
I am not surprised that Jimmy was able to run away as many times as he did, because this facility is completely unguarded. Man can just walk out of there anytime he pleases. After finding out that Corey and Jimmy are missing, Sam and Nick go to the police station to meet up with the Batemans. As they're leaving to look for the kids, they meet Mr. Putnam. Now, Mr. Putnam is being paid by Jimmy's mom to find the kids, and instead of, offering to help Sam and Nick, he basically tells them to fuck off.
Just so you know, I make my money by bringing kids in, and I don't make it if someone else brings a kid in first. So let's not be getting in my way, okay?
We then get a nice little montage of Corey and Jimmy walking through Utah. In what seems to be the next day, Corey and Jimmy finally make it to a bus station. As Corey walks up to get a bus ticket, he kind of just basically forces Jimmy to play Double Dragon.
Well, go ahead. Play.
And at this point, you kind of learn that Corey's really not the best brother. In fact, he treats Jimmy like shit this entire movie. As Corey's talking to the bus clerk, he spots a cop, thinks, holy shit, I'm about to get caught, grabs Jimmy, and runs to the back of the building. As Corey grabs Jimmy, he looks back at Double Dragon and sees that he got 50,000 points, which apparently is the most amazing thing that Corey has ever seen in his life.
50,000? You got 50,000 on Double Dragon?
In the back of the building, they're approached by a girl named Haley, who makes the worst first impression ever.
It's his problem. He's just shy. Shy a few bricks, I'd say.
Like, leave the man alone. He is 6 years old. Corey then makes a bet with Haley that if Jimmy can beat her at Double Dragon, then she'll give them her bus ticket. And after insulting Jimmy one more time,
get out of here. Him?
They play some Double Dragon. And Jimmy absolutely destroys her. And I mean rightfully so, because she had it coming for treating this man like a piece of garbage.
What is he, some kind of freak or something?
But none of that mattered, because all of that gaming caused them to miss the bus. They then go into a diner that has video games built into the table, and decide that because Jimmy is so good at Double Dragon, that they should enter him into video game Armageddon in California. Just moments after the children hit the road, Mr. Putnam arrives at the diner they were just at. Sam and Nick also show up, but instead of apologizing for his actions earlier, Mr. Putnam stabs their tires. And at this point you're probably thinking, is this man insane? And honestly, you would be right to think that. Except seconds later, Sam is returning the exact same energy that Mr. Putnam's given off, because we see this man beating his car with a shovel. We then see the kids hitchhiking with some strangers to the next town. While they're in the truck, Haley tells Corey that she's from Reno, and that if they want to make it into the video game competition, Jimmy has to go there so that he can train. And while she's saying this, they're flaunting the money that they have just around in the air, and the grown adults up front stop the truck so that they can rob them.
Stand, Jimmy! Look out, kid. This kid,
and honestly, this must be their first time robbing children because they are getting their asses handed to them. They then go into this diner so that they can grift some old men. I kind of feel like the director didn't really know who the demographic was for video games, because in what world would you see 3 old business dudes huddled around an arcade machine like this and act like they actually knew what they were doing?
Go on!
They then decide to spend the night in a junkyard, and while Jimmy's sleeping, Haley decides to tell Corey more about her life story. And for some reason, Corey thinks this is the perfect time to scare her, so she beats his ass. The next morning, the kids are sitting on the side of the road when they're approached by some bikers. Now, do you think they A, run away, B, ignore them, or C, go with them? It's C. The answer's C. They go with these random strangers. But it's okay, because in the next scene, we get another montage of them hitchhiking with more random strangers. After the montage, we see the kids in another diner, but this time they're grifting some teenagers. After Jimmy beats these guys, they act like they're gonna beat them up until this waitress comes out of nowhere and just starts screaming at them.
Roger, it's them again! I got video monsters, I got movie monsters.
After the teenagers leave, this kid tells them where they can find someone that no one can beat, and his name is Lucas.
Lucas is awesome.
Lucas is the coolest, the most awesome, most badass person you're ever gonna meet. When they meet Lucas, Lucas shows off his skills by pulling out the power glove.
I love the power glove. It's so bad.
He then uses the power glove to play what looks to be the easiest game ever made. Now you might be thinking, maybe this power glove plays an important role later on in the movie. And you'd be wrong, because we never see this thing ever again. The pressure from Lucas's awesomeness puts Jimmy into shock, so he runs off. A few towns over, Sam and Nick are seen spending the night in a motel. As they're laying in bed, Nick tries to connect with Sam through past memories. However, it seems that Sam is too far deep into sleep paralysis to care. The next morning, Corey and Haley wake up to find that Jimmy is missing. However, he's just sitting outside playing with popcorn boxes. And then out of nowhere, the teenagers from the day before show up to try to rob them. And they beat the shit out of Corey. During the robbery, the lunchbox with Jimmy's things in it breaks open, and Corey finally finds out what's inside. So it turns out that Jimmy had a twin sister that drowned in a river, and in his lunchbox she was carrying items that belonged to her. You're gonna hit us with this halfway through the movie? I thought this was about video games. But it's okay, because they dropped that real quick, because 3 seconds later, they're back on the road to Reno. Sam and Nick make it to the next town where they run into Mr. Putnam. And the first thing that Sam does is try to total this man's car. And while they're doing this, the kids finally make it to Reno. In order for Jimmy to train for the competition, they need a lot of money for a hotel. But how are they gonna get this money? They're gonna hit the casino. Haley calls in one of her dad's friends and he makes money for these children. You know, any responsible adult would be like, oh, you guys ran away from home? Well, let me take you to the police station so they can call your parents. But not Spanky, this guy doesn't even question it. So Spanky's able to make enough money for the hotel. And then we get a nice little training montage. After the training montage, we see Sam and Nick at another diner. And at this point, I'm convinced that the only eating establishments in this movie are diners. While they're in the diner, Nick notices one of the teenagers that robbed the kids wearing Jimmy's hat, so they go to question him. And as they're asking him questions, Lucas, who just happens to be chilling in this diner, turns around and tells them exactly where they are. He rats them out. Lucas was cool, but it turns out he was nothing more than a little rat. Mr. Putnam just happens to be outside of the diner and has their truck towed. Somehow, Mr. Putnam is able to make it to Reno within the same day, and he finds the kids.
Hey, you! Hey! I got him! I got him!
Where is he?
Where's who?
Don't give me any lip, you snot. I've been following you across 2 states. I'm being paid to bring your little brainless brother back. Now point him out!
But luckily, Haley's quick thinking saves the day.
He touched my breast!
They then run to Haley's house to hide from Mr. Putnam, and it turns out that the whole reason that they didn't stay there to begin with was because she was embarrassed that she lived in a trailer.
Where the hell are we, Haley? My home. Your home? Nice place.
The next morning, they wake up to just find Jimmy being kidnapped by Mr. Putnam.
Jimmy! Stop! Wait! Stop!
Somehow this man was just able to find where she lived. Please send this man to prison. There is no reason that you should be able to know how to find children. Haley then calls in her trucker friends and they beat the shit out of Mr. Putnam.
So you touched her breasts, huh?
Oh my God.
Spanky then drives the kids the rest of the way to LA, and they make it just in time for Jimmy to register for the last qualifying round.
Last and final round. I'm up here, my little beauties.
But as they're registering, Mr. Putnam also shows up at the tournament. I swear this man has to be pushing like 140 in order to make it there seconds after the kids get there. Like this man is doing criminal speed. After entering the first round, Jimmy is able to win and makes it to the finals along with Lucas and this girl. The announcer then tells him that the final round is going to feature a game that no one has ever played before, and Haley loses her shit.
What? A new game? You didn't say there'd be a new game!
Between rounds, everyone is standing outside, including Lucas, his goons, and a tiny Tobey Maguire. Lucas spots Mr. Putnam and tells him exactly where the kids are, because again, Lucas is nothing but a dirty little rat. As Putnam chases the kids through the park, Sam and Nick show up to help them out, but then Putnam punches Sam in the face, knocking him out cold. What the hell is up with this guy? All I know is that after this man deserves some jail time. Somehow the kids are able to make it above the event, and Corey spots Lucas standing on stage. Corey yells down to him to have the announcer wait for Jimmy, and this man just straight up ignores him.
He's coming! Go! Run!
Just before Putnam is able to make it to the kids, they escape down an elevator. As the wall on the stage is being raised, the crowd can see Jimmy standing at his podium, and the announcer, who's kind of like a cracked out Green Goblin, gets way too excited.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 contestants. 1, 2, 3!
He then announces that the super secret new game that they're going to be playing is Super Mario Bros. 3. As they battle for the most points, Jimmy's entire family shows up to cheer him on. And for some reason, Haley acts like she's having a full-on conversation with Jimmy because every time when the camera cuts back to her, she's saying these random things.
The star! Jimmy, get the star! I knew you can do it! Just go! Stop! That's the magic flute! Use it! It opens the warp!
Like, this guy can't hear you. At first, Jimmy's doing really bad, but then he's able to find the warp zone that gives him a lot of points, allowing him to win the competition. And after winning the competition, everyone in his family is finally nice to him.
Well, that was pretty remarkable. We're thinking about putting him into an institution. A home.
Who knew all it took was $50,000 for you to be treated like a human being? On their way home, Jimmy spots some dinosaur monuments and wants to pull over. As they pull over, Jimmy hops out of the car and sprints to one of the dinosaurs. Corey runs after him and finds him hiding inside of one of the puppet exhibits. Jimmy then shows Corey one of the pictures from inside of his lunchbox, and it happens to be a picture of the entire family at that dinosaur monument. It turns out that the whole reason that Jimmy wanted to go to California was so that he could leave his memories of his sister in the last place that the family was together.
Hey boss, this kid left his lunchbox. What an idiot. Just put it with the others. Alright, sounds good.
And that's the end of the movie. Now honestly, this movie isn't terrible. However, it would have been a lot better if there wasn't so much product placement. Almost every scene in this movie features some kind of Nintendo product. The most prominent product placement in this movie was the big reveal of Super Mario Bros. 3 at the end of the tournament. Now prior to this movie's release, Super Mario Bros. 3 was released in Japan in 1988. But it didn't come to America until 1990. So this movie was the first glimpse of Super Mario Bros. 3 that Americans had. And if you ask me, that is a terrible way to unveil a game, especially since they gave away the secret warp zone at the beginning of the game. So if you wanted to know how to speedrun the game, all you had to do was pop in your VHS copy of The Wizard and you're good to go. But none of that matters because all of this happened in the 80s, and no one seemed to question anything in the 80s. So that's it for today's video. If you liked it, go ahead and leave a like and a comment down below. Also check me out on social media, those will be down in the description, and I'll see you guys later.